Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, broadcasting live every Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central from Panama City Beach, Florida, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining me on my weekly broadcast. Every week, I'll feature some of the best instructors, coaches, authors, and entrepreneurs in the golf business today. I begin with a great discussion on Coach's Corner, followed by an insightful interview with my special guest. So let's get started by introducing tonight's Coach's Corner panel. All right, thank you everybody for joining me tonight here on Golf Talk Live. And in just a moment, I will bring out the Coach's Corner panel. But first, let me just remind everybody, we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on the blogtalkradio.com network. And also tonight, I want to, again, welcome back this year's Coach's Corner sponsor, golfswing.com. They're going to sponsor the Coach's Corner panel segment again this season here on Golf Talk Live. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about them, and then I'm going to introduce the panel. We're going to get into tonight's discussion. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by a very good friend who's been on the show. He was actually on the Coach's Corner panel a number of years back, and he's been busy doing some other things. Eric Cogorno, the founder and owner of Cogorno Golf. He's going to be joining me here on the second half of the show. But first, let me just tell you a little bit again about golfswing.com. With its cutting-edge technology, have teamed up alongside some of the best golf instructors, coaches, and swing gurus in the business. Together, they have created one of the best video teaching and online training platforms in golf. If you're ready to break 100, 90, 80, or even 70, then join their online video academy and learn from some of the best. Go to golfswing.com after the show. Join today, watch, practice, and improve your game. I want to thank all of the folks at golfswing.com again for faithfully sponsoring this segment of Golf Talk Live Coach's Corner. All right, I'm going to introduce the panel tonight. Bill Abrams, he's a PGA professional and owner of and director of instruction at Golf Solutions Academy in Balmoral, Woods Freight, Illinois. He's also, you'll find him in the winter months for a few more weeks yet. You'll see him down at the Grand Palms Resort in Pembroke Pines, Florida. He was also the 2017 Central Illinois PGA Teacher of the Year and 2015 Illinois PGA Professional of the Year as well. He's joining me on the panel tonight. Also on the panel is Jamie Leno-Zimron, speaker, instructor, body worker, and consultant. She's also an Aikido 6th degree black belt, Class A LPGA teacher professional, corporate and conference speaker, executive trainer and coach, and speaker for Vistage International and the Executive Committee of Canada. Rounding up the panel, of course, is Paul Castor. Is one of the country's leading golf coaches. He's a Golf Channel Academy lead coach and was recognized by Golf Digest as one of the best teachers in New Jersey for 2017 and 18. And he was also honored by U.S. Kids Golf as one of 2017's top 50 kids teachers. He's a level 2 certified by TPI, Aimpoint, and K-Motion, and he serves on Foresight Sports Advisory Board and the New Jersey PGA's Junior Golf Committee. Guys, welcome to Coach's Corner here on Golf Talk Live.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right, appreciate it, guys. All right, well, thank you. And again, as always, thank you very much for your time. And I apologize. I think my tongue is a little tied tonight. I've slipped up on a few of the introductions there, but hopefully as the night progresses, I'll get my chops back. As I was mentioning just here off air, we're going to talk about getting prepared for a big event. And it can be, a competitive tournament if you're maybe a collegiate golfer, if you're somebody that's waiting, maybe you've got a corporate event coming up in a little bit and you want to prepare for that, or it's just to you it's a big event and you want to get some good practice in and you want to be sort of cognizant of things that you should be made aware of. We're going to try and help you set some goals for it and some guidelines of what you need to do to get yourself ready. So, Jamie, I'm going to go with you first tonight on this first point, and there's about 10 of them here, and we'll try to get through them as we progress through the hour. One of the things that I think is right from the get-go is to really get familiar with the golf course. Now, obviously, you might be in a situation where if it's a club tournament or something like that and you're familiar with that golf course, it's a little bit easier to do that. But sometimes if you're playing a corporate event, it may be a golf course that you're not familiar with. So what are some things that you can do, Jamie, that you can suggest to help them get familiar with the golf course, and particularly if they haven't had an opportunity to play it yet?
Absolutely, I think a good idea, if at all possible, to at least get one kind of practice round in, just to see the golf course at some point. And let's say even that that before the event, right before the event, maybe you're not going to have time or there's no way to get on the golf course. If you know where the course is or where the event's going to be, get there a month or two or three before. It's just always helpful to have a little familiarity with the course. Of course, nothing like some course knowledge. Of course, you can buy the little books that they always have them available in the pro shop, and you want to study that if you aren't on the golf course, and even if you have had a chance to play it, so that you get some ideas. I like to get local knowledge, so that may mean having lunch or dinner with someone, a member of the club, or someone who does know the golf course, and then get specific. I mean, you can sit at dinner, right, and walk through the 18 holes, and especially with a little book in hand, and with someone who does know the golf course, if you don't have a chance to play it. I do think that it really helps to have. You don't want to be blindsided, put it that way. So there's always some things to know about a golf course, and getting around even once is really helpful. Obviously, there's something really interesting, which is, let's say it is a course that you know well, and maybe we're going to get into this later, but you may have some memories from past rounds or even past events or tournaments there, and those could be positive or negative, right? They can be helpful or sort of spook you if something bad happened. But we can talk about that at another time, a little bit later. Yeah.
Well, exactly right. Well said. And obviously, ultimately, if you're able to get out to the golf course ahead of time, if it's somewhere that's fairly local to where you live, and you haven't had the opportunity to play it, obviously, your best bet is to try and get out there ahead of time before. Sometimes things come up and maybe you're not getting a lot of notice. Maybe you're sort of a last-minute hop on the tournament ride, if you will, so you don't get a lot of time to really prepare. But I think if you can either get in touch with somebody that does have some knowledge about it, or get a copy of one of the yardage books or what have you. The other thing too, Jamie, I think, and I was thinking about this as you were answering the question. With technology nowadays, most golf courses, if you go online, they'll actually walk you through hole by hole and give you a description, and usually some really good photos of what the holes are going to look like, and especially some of the ones that offer a top view of the holes, what they look like, and you can get an idea by the yardage. And obviously, if you've played some golf before, you kind of know. Hopefully, you know your yardages. We'll talk about that as well. But that's another way too that you can kind of prepare yourself to get a. Right.
Yeah, a lot of apps that Golf Logic, whatever, all the different kinds of apps, they can also give you a good course overview. So you can just go online and go through the holes that way. There's definitely information available out there. That all being said, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I really do like to have the conversation with somebody who does know the golf course.
Right. Again, if you can't make it out there personally, by all means, if you can get somebody or get in touch with somebody that does have some local knowledge, you can kind of pick their brains a little bit. Or even, I know it's not always easy, but maybe even get in touch with the pro to get some insight a little bit that's working at that particular facility. Bill, I'm going to jump to you next, and this sort of falls in line a little bit with what we just talked about, but planning ahead a strategy. So let's say you've gathered some information, maybe you've played on the golf course. Now it's time to put a strategy together of how I'm going to approach that particular event. Again, obviously my abilities are going to dictate whether I'm going to be playing a little bit more aggressive or if I'm going to be a little bit more conservative in my play. And obviously it depends on the format that's being designated for that particular round. But give us some pointers, if you wouldn't mind, on maybe building a good strategy.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and everybody, because the perception that people have of the way they see shots, I find it's pretty important that when you're doing your practice round, not to make your game plan from tee to green, but from green to tee. Stand up behind the green after you've played out the hole while you're waiting for your playing partners to finish out, and look backwards. because sometimes a dead straight hole, playing it dead straight, is not going to give you an opportunity to get as close to the hole or to put the ball in a good scoring position at the green or near the green. So one of the things I always recommend to players, because you can see an easy route, dogleg wise, or places that you have to put the golf ball to score your best. And I always like to keep it positive, not saying avoiding places, but putting the golf ball in certain places to allow yourself the best opportunity to score as stress-free as possible. And the second thing is getting to know the firmness and speed of the greens. One of the things, ahead of time, if you have a little bit of an idea, you're going to get a lot of breaking putts. Work on breaking putts, fast putts, slow putts, whatever that is. Try to get yourself that idea. And before the round, especially, give yourself an opportunity. Go around the clock. Hit 6-foot putts. Hit 4 from uphill. Hit 4 from downhill. Hit 4 from right to left and left to right, to give yourself an idea of how the speed is taking the break and how you have to hit the ball to get your perfect holding speed for the day.
Right. Well said. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that too in a little bit. But some great points. I mean, obviously you want to develop some sort of a strategy before you go and play. Again, gathering some local knowledge if you're not didn't have the ability to get out on the golf course before that particular event happens. And obviously, sort of visualizing in your mind how each of the holes are going to be played based on your abilities, of course. Paul, this is actually a question I'm going to bounce back to each of you, but I want to give Paul the first opportunity at it. And the obvious thing is, if time permits, you want to tune up with a golf professional maybe a couple of weeks ahead, and depending on how big of an event, you may even want to go even a month out. If you're not necessarily working with somebody all the time, that would be a good time to get in touch with your local, PGA or LPGA professional and, set up some sessions that you can kind of work on some things. So, Paul, talk about that. What should people be working on? Obviously we don't want them to reinvent the wheel per se, but there are some things that maybe you might want to guide a player through in some sessions or even a session in preparation for an event like this.
Sure. I think it kind of depends a lot on the player and their experience and the level of competition. If the player is more advanced and we're talking about a high level tournament like a high level amateur tournament or state open or something like that, the closer you get to the event, you really don't want to be thinking golf swing very much. And so the preparation should be taking place well ahead. Golf swing, fitness work, things that, we lay the foundation for months in advance. And then you kind of, as you get closer to the event, you're not making big changes. You're thinking about how to play the golf course, what your shot tendencies are. And you're really focused more on performance and not technique. If we're talking about, a scramble tournament and trying to get ready to just go out and have an enjoyable time with colleagues, then it's kind of a different preparation process, and we're probably going to be focusing on just having some functional ball flight and enjoying yourself and making sure that contact is good and your swing feels relatively reliable and repeatable. I think you really, within a couple of weeks of the event, probably is not where you want to start working on golf swing stuff, unless you have quite a bit of time.
Right.
You want to start working on those sorts of things further out. Definitely checking in with your teaching professional, making sure that, the things that are kind of patterns in your golf swing, that you're on top of those and that you kind of understand them and that you're working toward a more productive pattern is going to be really helpful. And then putting in short game, even the best players in the world are only hitting about 13 greens around. So, we want to make sure that short game feels really good and reliable because it's kind of your insurance policy, and it's going to make sure that you're can enjoy yourself regardless of whether your golf swing is working that day, because it doesn't always cooperate. So
right.
I guess that's
well,
an answer.
Well said. Jamie, I'm going to come to you now as well and give you an opportunity to answer this. And I just want to say that, one thing that, given that scenario for me, probably, and I would agree with pretty much everything that Paul has just said. Obviously there's a lot of variables and a lot of factors involved, but I think one thing that would be really helpful for a player is really observing and looking at their pre-shot routine. Because as we all know, guys, when we see a lot of students, especially for the first time, most of them, unless they've been working with somebody for a while, have a terrible or non-existent pre-shot routine. And I think sometimes helping them organize that and develop their own unique pre-shot routine could be very beneficial, even if they're not hitting the ball as solid as they'd like to. Just having that sort of regimented routine as they're stepping up to each shot sometimes will give them that confidence and that sort of preparedness. What do you think about that, Jamie? And what other thoughts do you have as far as coming to see, say, someone like yourself, maybe a few weeks or even a month out of an event like that?
I think that the practice of centering is really important. And what I mean by that is that, really kind of getting down into the belly center and the legs and low body, into your base that creates stability and balance in your swing, at a physical level, is also really important at the mental and emotional level. And so, for me, when we talk about routine, pre-shot routine, I mean, the reason that we talk about that and emphasize that so much is that it really helps to the golfer to create a tempo and a timing and a consistency and a place to focus the mind away from anxiety or distraction or any of these negative kinds of influences. So for me, centering is like the basis even of the whole routine. And the first thing, I call it first things first. And so it's practicing that sense of centering, which is a very physical thing. It helps you to get integrated, have your left and right sides of your body and brain working together, be first in your lower body, which gives strength and stability, and then kind of a relaxed looseness in the upper body. From there, it's, how you put your hands on the club or line up your shot, place your right foot, your left foot, take your stance, all the things that go into, all the details of a routine. But I like to emphasize, and what I think I can bring to your listeners that may be really valuable in terms of routine, no matter what the specifics are, technically speaking, that before anything, first things first is to be very present and centered and calm in the body-mind system. So, again, centering helps with that mental focus as well as calming the nervous system and the heart pounding and the sweaty hands and all that kind of stuff. So I want to just really bring that into this discussion of routine, pre-shot routine, post-shot routine, and even the routine of in-between shots. And as the practice being more and more centered, more and more present throughout, everything's going to work. And that's the stuff that goes out the window the minute that we start maybe having a bad shot or a bad hole or a three-putt or a bad result at some level. All of a sudden, we speed up and we start tripping out in our head and all of that stuff. So the centering practice and then whatever the actual technique or movements that you settle on in your own pre-shot routine. So I just really want to emphasize that. I agree. Well said. Conversation of routine and pre-shot routine, because I think it's not something we see or talk about nearly enough.
No, you're exactly right, and I agree with that. I think, there's a lot of factors, Bill, that go into, seeing a local professional before an event like this. There's a lot of things. Many of it we've just touched about here. Both Jamie and Paul have talked about, and I think one other thing too, and I know that she alluded as well to the physical side as well as the mental side of the game. There's a lot of simple things that can be done. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we do see for a lot of players that are entering an event again, whether it be a corporate outing or some other maybe club championship or something like that, they start to tinker with their golf swing too much. So they go and see their pro, and suddenly they want to reinvent the wheel, and then they have a terrible event, and they wonder why. I think a lot of times too, in addition to what I mentioned about a good, formulating a good solid pre-shot routine that's going to help them be consistent throughout the round, I think also getting them loose and stretched and helping with some sort of a physical plan or encouraging them to do things leading up to the tournament. What do you think about that? And then, again, throw any additional thoughts that you would want to incorporate if you were seeing somebody a few weeks out.
Great points there, Ted. A few things that I definitely do, and we'll get onto the physical part of it in a moment. Let me just first start with the first thing I do, especially with a player that I haven't seen much or in a while. I'll take them on the course to play a few shots and a few holes, because then we can assess collectively where they are and where they want to be and where they really could be. So, if we can define those areas, we can see the routine, we can see if there is one, if it's consistent, if it's not consistent. And really, a lot of folks will come to any coach. I got to hit my driver further. Doing this, doing that, chunking irons, okay. But when it really comes down to it, you put them on the course, the sore spot is being able to get the ball on the green and in the cup in 3 or less shots from 100 yards. That's where most of the average players run into trouble. And even when you get into better players, focusing on that area. Then getting into the physical a little bit with and I consider your human body one of your pieces of equipment that you need to have expert custom fit as well. Part of the problem that I see with a lot of players, it's not just the stretching, it's the nutrition and the hydration. With all the sports drinks and energy drinks and things like that, I've found with players over the years that some of those drinks actually dehydrate the player versus just old-fashioned H2O. I think that's a big portion of the physical well-being, is even just starting with that. If the player isn't really if they're going for a scramble or whatever, I just feel that making sure the nutrition and the hydration are very good, and then, utilizing some kind of, active motion with their body, so their body is making the proper movement. But it all starts really, to me, with the nutrition and the hydration. And I think those are two areas that are definitely overlooked by most players, and even some of the more elite players to a degree.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I would agree again 100% with that. When you want to go out sometimes and just have a little bit of fun, and you're just playing a fun round, you can be a little bit more lax in some of those areas. But if you want to be competitive in an event and you really want to bring your best, even if it's a scramble, and you're relying on, your playing partners to pitch in, and you want to do your part, even if you're not a very good golfer yourself, there's lots of things that you can do to contribute. But if you're coming up there and you're sluggish and you're tired because you've been drinking a bunch of soda, or you've been drinking some energy drink that's cutting you hopped up for, the first hour, then you're crashing down, the next hour, you're not bringing a lot to the tournament. And I understand some events, again, if it's a corporate event, it's meant to be fun and everybody unified and having a good time. But at the same time, you want to take advantage and get out and really play some good golf and enjoy it and make it a fun experience. And if you're just sort of schlepping around the golf course and low in energy and just not very, with it, if you will, then you're really not going to enjoy it, and you're not likely going to want to play again. Paul, I want to come to you in this next one, and I'm going to lump kind of two of them together here because they really do sort of fall hand in place. One of the other key things, now we're closer to the event. We've been to see our local professional. We've got some good tips and some good fundamentals to really bring to it. But another problem that we see with a lot of folks is not arriving early enough to get in some practice time. So that's key right there, number one. And also we want to allow ourselves enough time to develop, and hopefully with our professional that we've been working with, they've helped us and guided us to create an effective warm-up routine prior to that event. So just brush across some points, if you wouldn't mind, Obviously, we want to get there early, but what you would suggest for somebody tournament day to get prepared?
I'm a big fan of getting to the golf course, an hour to an hour and a half before you tee off if you possibly can. And, if this is a pretty significant competition, you want to give yourself a chance to slow down. I think we all find ourselves rushing a lot more these days. And, Ben Hogan talked about how he used to drive in the right-hand lane and drive 10 miles an hour under the speed limit on the way to the golf course when he went to tournament rounds. So giving yourself lots of time, giving yourself a chance to kind of, get accustomed to the practice facility, get to the putting green. And I think the first stop you should make after you register or check in is the putting green, because you need to understand what the greens are like. That's one of the big factors that changes from one golf course to the next. Your golf swing is going to be your golf swing. You're going to hit the ball, sometimes really well, sometimes not so well, but understanding what the greens are like, and I teach aim point, so calibrating your aim point read, if you're an aim point user, should be one of the first things you sort of do when you get to a new golf course. And then as far as your warm-up goes, I think in a perfect world, having a chance to ride a bike for a few minutes and stretch, get warm, loosen your body up would be a really kind of an ideal way to get ready. We don't all have that opportunity, at a new facility or a place that we're not a member at. But giving yourself a little bit of aerobic exercise that morning, going through a stretching routine, if it's kind of basic, stretching out your hamstrings, your hips, your obliques, core muscles, making sure that you're kind of ready and able to move, very, very important. And as far as the warm-up goes, just kind of not putting a lot of stock in how you're hitting the golf ball the day of the event, going to the range and just kind of getting loose, because you can play really well on the golf course after a really bad warm-up. And the warm-up really isn't always indicative of how you're going to perform. So just trying to get your body ready to play, get out on the golf course, and try to enjoy yourself and focus on the shot at hand. That's really what you're trying to prepare yourself to do.
Right, exactly. And Jamie, I think the other thing on that, and I'm just going to, I want to move on to the next one, but I want to give you an opportunity to comment as well. I think the other thing too, that, why you want to sort of get there early a little bit to the golf course, and I like the point that Paul just made, reference to Ben Hogan sort of driving a little bit slower. I think one of the key things too is to sort of find your rhythm, and I think this is what you alluded to with also finding your center, but really sort of finding your rhythm for the day. If you're racing to the golf course because you're running late and you're quickening your pace and you're getting yourself out of rhythm, then you're not really very centered, and you're not really rhythmic, and you're out of sync. So, talk a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind as well. And then the other thing I want to get you to add on to is, and I know we've already touched on a little bit, but on the putting surface as well, the speed of the greens, things that you might want to do and test there, and even maybe some chipping as well to sort of familiarize yourself with some of the short game shots. But talk a little bit about, again, not so much the centering aspect of it, but just finding that rhythm in using, whether it be through your warm-up routine or just what your rhythm's going to be for that day.
Well, I would absolutely agree that getting there to the golf course early, an hour and a half, whatever it is ideal, so that you can have time to, do all the things you need to do, and in terms of warming up, stretching, maybe getting a little bite. People usually have to go to the bathroom, all these kinds of things. You got a budget, and it's almost like a pre-round routine is what I think of it as. in terms of what I do in the morning and what I coach people to do, before the round. And generally speaking, and I think a lot of tour pros agree with this, putting is very important, getting the speed of the greens. It's also, for me, putting just kind of helps you get set, It's on a great big swing. It just gets that backswing, follow-through, tempo, rhythm, evenness set, and then working through the bag, starting with some warm-up exercises and then shorter clubs. And what's interesting is that short swing, wedge swings, maybe some chipping, that's really kind of like the micro swing of the macro swing of the longer clubs, which leads up to your driver. People who start the other way around can have trouble setting their rhythm, getting in sync, may actually hurt themselves, pull muscles a little bit or whatever. So working up through the bag from the shorter clubs to the long clubs is I think, probably the best way to go. And that speaks to even learning the game, from green to tee, shorter swings building up to longer. And that having that pre-round routine is somewhat comparable to the pre-shot routine. And so then how to get yourself into that centered, synchronized place. That all being said, things come up, and once in a while, you don't get there on time. And I think we have to be prepared for that as well, and not let that send us off into a bad place. I think of, actually it was interesting, I talked to Mariah Stackhouse. You know her? She's a young African-American player. Yep. She's on the LPGA Tour, and she was a total college standout at Stanford, my alma mater. And when she was a freshman, standing about 5'3", maybe, she's not physically a large person. Her spirit's and competitive spirit's amazing. But she shot 61 as a freshman in competitive collegiate play. And so I asked her, I wanted to know, what did you do before that round? How did you prepare for it? And she said, I got to tell you, I got to the golf course late, and I just had to rush out there and play. So, happened to Rory McIlroy, right? I mean, there's some famous instances of this. And I think that we have to also be prepared and to let that be an okay thing, or let it be a positive and not just a negative, because sometimes it's what I call playing out of our minds, right? We didn't even have time to start to get concerned or do all the things that we do. It's like, just run out there and play golf. And there have been some amazing examples of just outstanding rounds when people didn't do their pre-round routine or get there with the time in advance. So I just want to toss that in as well.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point, and you're exactly right, Jamie, in your analysis. I mean, obviously, ultimately, we want to be able to get to the golf course in a timely manner that's going to be beneficial to us. But sometimes, whether it be traffic patterns or whatever the case may be, or something else happens, the kids get sick with the flu or something, and you've got to do something early in the morning before you get out to the golf course. So these things can happen, and you have to be able to adapt. And one of the things about golf is you have to sort of improvise and adapt all at the same time when you get out there, and that includes with your golf game. If you're not playing at your best, rather than letting it get you down, keep your emotions in a positive frame. Like, just say, okay, I'm going to work with what I have at the golf course today. Paul, you kind of touched on that a little bit earlier as well. And just sort of work with what you've got, and don't let it, your emotions and your thoughts sort of, hold you hostage when you get out on the golf course. And if you're getting there a little bit late, don't kick yourself in the fanny and say, gosh, I'm late and I didn't get a chance to warm up. Just get out there. And, if you've had some practice up, and maybe, again, you've worked with your professional weeks prior, just play those, those words that he or she has told you in preparation, sort of in your mind as you prepare to get out to that first tee. But obviously, again, the optimal opportunity is to get there a little bit earlier if you can, but we understand things happen. Bill, the other thing is, and this is, I think, crucial as well, is knowing and understanding your limitations, which is kind of what I just touched on a little bit. But that's something as well, too, I think, that a lot of people get out there and they try, they saw Tiger or they saw somebody on TV try some little funky shot, and they're going to give it a try now. Maybe it's a high flop shot, and they're not really that proficient in it. that's not always the best thing to do. So talk a little bit about that, understanding and knowing your limitations.
That's something that's very key for, every level of player, Ted, as we go and look at it. And I always encourage people to be themselves. Avoid trying to be somebody that you're not. And that's something that I think is very key to being honest with yourself and being able to get the most out of your performance. We see some people, if I take an Ernie Els and a Nick Price, two ends of the spectrum, a B- personality and an A probably plus, and then cubed personality. Trying to tell Nick Price to slow down isn't going to cut it. You may have to use some words, and with him, like be deliberate. Gather yourself, be deliberate. With Ernie Els, telling him to speed up or something isn't right. So even in the preparatory area, just being yourself, because when you get out of that little comfort zone, we find a lot of times with players, both mentally, tempo-wise, physically, they try to be somebody that they're not, and that really is a recipe for disaster from the word go. Just try to be as honest with yourself as you can, and playing, not necessarily playing the percentages, but playing the shots. If you're a left to right player and you're trying to play everything right to left that day, it's probably not going to be, a very good outcome for you that day. The same way with, trying a shot on the golf course. It never really is a good idea to try something. You should at least have a little bit of an experience period with it, especially in competition. But at times we have to call an audible, and as Peyton Manning would do, yell Omaha, and try to manufacture something because we just don't have nothing else. But I think the biggest key is to be true to yourself and be who you are, and really avoid falling into trying to be like a Nicholas or somebody else. It's going back to the warm up a little bit. Tom Watson in his heyday, in his prime, would warm up. He'd start off with a 3-iron, which goes against all common thought or knowledge that anybody would have trying to do something correctly. But he said, if I hit that one good, the rest of them are going to be fine. Going back to Ben Hogan, my old friend Tony Holguin told me a story about him. Hogan would always start warming up with a 9-iron. And Tony won the 54 Texas Open and a couple Mexican Opens. And he asked him one time, he goes, why do you start with a 9-iron? He goes, Tony, have you ever chunked a 9-iron? I mean, that's Ben Hogan saying, have you ever chunked a 9-iron? So, again, being true to yourself, I think, is a big key that we kind of forget about a little bit, in this whole picture.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And, I think understanding and learning your limitations, and I like the analogy. I mean, I've used it myself, when you talk about different players, like a Nick Price and an Ernie Els or even a Freddie Couples in there, if you've got somebody that has, that sort of similar body rhythm, what have you, as say a Nick Price, the worst thing that you can do is to try and teach them or encourage them to be like Ernie Els or Freddie Couples that has a much slower rhythm and pace to their game, and vice versa, of course. So you have to be very conscious of that. And again, when you're rushing around all the time and it's not your normal rhythm, and then you try to take that out in the golf course, it's just a recipe for disaster. Paula, something else that sort of falls into place with what we've just been talking about, and that is really playing to your strengths. I've played in a lot of different tournaments with individuals who maybe don't drive the ball very well, but they're fantastic putters. So again, if you're playing in a scramble format or a best ball format with your group, you might be the go-to guy, if you will, if you're proficient on the putting surface. So talk about that as a little bit as well, playing to your strengths and the importance of doing that. I know it's a little bit similar to the limitations, but if you've got strengths, that's what you play and work your game around, and not focus so much on the areas that you're not as proficient in. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand the role that expectations play and how we perform and build up tournaments in in our minds kind of, if you can go and play with limited expectations and understand who you are, maybe in general as a golfer, but also that day, you're usually going to play pretty well and you're going to enjoy yourself. And if you have really high expectations and, your confidence kind of hinges on, the success or failure of every shot that you hit, and you're always evaluating yourself, it really can make for kind of a tough day and not such an enjoyable experience. So making sure that you know what your strengths are, that you play to them, that you play your version of high percentage golf, that you pick smart targets based on your ball striking ability, that you pick correct lines off the tee based on what your shot pattern is, not what you kind of wish it were, is really so important, and yeah, I think if you're a good short game player and you're a good putter, then when you miss a green, you probably shouldn't be too upset about it. And I think most of us really shouldn't be too upset about it because the majority of people aren't gonna hit half the greens on the golf course, really. So making sure that you just kind of temper your expectations and know who you are, and I think really importantly, knowing how you feel that day and playing to how you feel, and what you believe your strengths are at that moment is really, really key for playing well, enjoying yourself, being in the present, all of that.
Well, exactly right. Well said, Paul. I think the other thing that it does too is it gives you a sense of confidence. If you know where your strengths are, again, if it happens to be closer around the short game, whether chipping and putting, that sort of thing, then you're going to play with confidence. If you're not a great driver of the ball, then don't focus on that. Again, if you're playing in a best ball format, you've got your other playing partners that hopefully at least one of you in there is going to be a pretty solid driver of the ball, and usually you've got a couple in there that are really solid iron players as well. So there's lots of room for error and also to get some gains as well to capitalize on that. And the other thing too is it uses it, and this goes into the next one, Jamie, point that I want to make, and that is using that information in that round, whether it be stats, areas of the game that you're really, really playing well, that you can use for future reference. I mean, the information, and again, you're there to have fun. I realize that you're not trying to analyze the game or the round to death, but there can be a lot of useful information that you can take out of that you can use for future tournaments or future rounds that you're going to play. So talk a little bit about that, and again, some things that maybe people want to take note of when they are playing. Again, got to be conscious of slow play and things like that, but there's things that they can do during that round about their own game. Even in a best ball format, there's things that you can talk about or record, if you will, during that round. So talk a little bit about that area.
There's a really great expression, and it says, fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Right.
So, yes, I think it's a good short expression, and it really is useful, I think, in golf for sure, and in our life. So, fail to prepare to fail, but prepare to win, and or do well, and that's what's going to happen. So, being aware, I think, looking at the rounds, looking at your stats, looking at your strengths, looking at areas that could use more work. I think all of that is part of what preparation is. What are your routines, et cetera. And I think, as you really want to know yourself and know what works for you, and then, practice those things basically. Put that into your preparation. And, another part of preparation, we want to look at our strengths and all of that and work on areas that need work. I think that something that's really been fascinating is to focus on kind of mental management or mind management during the round and getting better at that. Because I think, in so many ways, what happens on the golf course in an event, and that could be anywhere from a pretty intense competition to a scramble, right? Where you there's still competition and you want to do well, but I think it's in kind of in the moment and in the heat of battle, if you will, being able to manage our thoughts and our reactions and responses to what does go on the golf course is really key. So there's kind of, when we talk about an inner game, and for me, it's almost like being a ninja. I even talk to CEOs about this, being able to self-manage ninja style, so that people out there don't necessarily even know you're doing anything, but you do. And there's plenty of time on the golf course and in between shots, et cetera, to spend a little time with yourself constantly throughout the round, being aware of what your thoughts are, what your responses are to particular shots or situations, or that you're in, or that your group is in, or you and your partner in, depends what the format is. And get good at what you need to do to keep yourself in a calm and positive frame of mind, so that you can play positively. And pull it back if things start going south, all that kind of stuff. And again, so much of this is individual in a sense, and that's where it helps to work with yourself, to work with a coach or a pro in an individualized kind of way, so that you know what works for you and you're able to practice that and get better and better at it. So that's the kind of stuff that I think is important in terms of preparation, shall we say, and to know that we really do need to be prepared.
Yeah, well said. And you're exactly right. I think that preparation is key for whatever you do in life, but particularly if you're going to go out in the golf course and you're playing in an event, it's good to get some practice in if possible. And again, obviously, people's schedules today are very, very tight, and they don't always get as much practice in as they like. But there's a lot of other things that you can do as well. And Bill, I'm going to give you sort of an opportunity to wrap this up with some final thoughts. And I know everybody sort of alluded a little bit to this, but getting out there and relaxing, reducing the stress, and we just want to have fun, whatever it is, whether it's a corporate event or it's the club championship. I mean, obviously you want to get those competitive juices going, and you might want to think about one thing that just as Jamie was talking about, even in between shots or in between holes, when the opportunity presents itself. To really help yourself to get centered is maybe do some deep breathing exercise and things like that, just to sort of calm and reduce the stress levels down. And a lot of really top tour players do that very, very well. And that doesn't mean they don't fall off the horse every once in a while, but you will see them do that where you can tell they're really not thinking about the shot that's necessarily coming up, because they're waiting for their playing partner to play. So talk on that. I mean, we want to have fun when we go to these events. Talk a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, very good point there on the breathing. I think that's something that every player can accomplish, whether it's a tour player or a 36 handicap. Tom Watson once said he really never learned to play until he learned how to breathe. And I think that's something that we take for granted a little bit. And I can tell you with my elite players, especially my elite juniors, we do a lot of breathing exercises and drills as we're hitting balls and hitting shots. To really get used to being able to do that, to get that breath to where it maintains an even pace and an even flow, so we're not, for lack of a better term, hyperventilating or going way too fast and too shallow, because it really allows you to think better. One thing that's very simple too that I always mention to players when we go into this breathing exercise is I'll have them put their chin in their chest. I say, okay, now take a deep breath, nose to belly. And they try, and then I say, okay, take your eyes and look up over the horizon and do the same thing. And it's a night and day difference between those two things, and any player can do this. And I think that's one of the things between shots, during shots, just maintaining that breath can do more to help you. The word relax, I think a better word is to focus, to have channeled focus is a better word to do it, because I think sometimes the word relax can also connote being very sloppy. Again, with somebody that's a driver personality or a dominating personality, if I say relax, they think you mean, goof off or really not pay attention. So, we can find that focus that channeled focus with a player and have them breathe the way that they gets them into a good position, then we're ready to go, because the mind and body will work great. If that breathing isn't right, the mind certainly is not going to work great. And if the mind's not working good, the body's going to fail as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I'm reminded of a story that was shared on my other show, Women of Golf, and Cindy Miller and I, of course, you all know, host together on Tuesday mornings. And we had a guest on several years back, and, she talked about a conversation that she had with Annika Sorenstam, and in preparation to play a major tournament, and I believe it was a Women's Open. And, she said that one of the problems that she was having at that time is she was so focused during her rounds that it was actually exhausting her. And it just happened at that particular time. She had been recently married and had bought a home and was planning on doing some renovations in the kitchens and things like that. And she said to her, when you're between the holes, maybe think a little bit about some of the things that you want to do in the kitchen. And it seems kind of far-fetched, but the purpose of that conversation was to let her know that for 4 or 4.5 hours, you cannot be continually focused on everything that's happening out in the golf course 100%, because if you just hit a shot and you're walking up and you're thinking about everything and not taking time to sort of breathe and smell the roses, if you will, you're going to get burnt out after a couple of hours. And it actually served her very well, because she went on to win that tournament. So, it just goes to the point you just said, Bill, is, sometimes you have to be able to relax and not necessarily relax, but focus yourself, but not be so over-focused on the task at hand, to give yourselves a little bit of opportunity between shots and between holes as well, to sort of decompress and to get some of that energy, because otherwise, after a couple of hours, you're just burning yourself out, and it's just too much focus and too much attention on the task at hand. So you have to give yourself a little bit of a breather, I think, in between, and just enjoy the day, and I think you'll have fun along the way. Well, guys, as always, I think that was a great, very good discussion. I like a lot of the answers that you guys gave. And as always, I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm going to start with Paul, and then Jamie, and then Bill to round it out. Give you guys an opportunity to let the folks know if they want to reach out, and if you've got anything specific that's coming up in the near future that you want to bring to their attention. So, Paul, you go ahead.
Ted, thank you very much for having me, and Jamie and Bill, it was great being on with you. I have a Golf Channel Academy indoor facility here in Little Silver, New Jersey. Really looking forward to the next 6 days. I'm going to be traveling down to Augusta National with one of my junior clients who qualified for the drive, chip, and putt finals, so I'll be down there with him and his family to cheer him on and support him this weekend. And I'll be staying down to play a little bit of golf and attend the tournament a little bit as well on Wednesday. So my website is paulcastergolf.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram and on Facebook. My handle on Instagram is paulcastergolf.
Perfect. Well, enjoy the tournament number one, and Paul, as always, it's a pleasure having you join the panel for these discussions as well. And thanks for doing a great job. Jamie, go ahead. You go next.
Yeah, have a great time at Augusta, and the drive through putt is so great. I love working with the kids on that, so that ought to be wonderful.
Thank you.
People can find me on my website at kiaigolf.com, KIAI golf.com. And I am, I've got quite a few trips coming up in just the coming month. I'll be in Southern California, and then I'll be in Seattle. I'll also be back east. So, if people want to get in touch, it's always wonderful. It's because I travel and speak so much, I have opportunities to interact with people in a lot of different ways and settings. So I just want to let people know that. I'm also increasingly doing a lot of Skype sessions and coaching. And I really have been enjoying that because we can see each other. We can actually, physically do some things. And a lot of the mental game and mind-body game is very coachable online.
Mm-hmm.
So, or, Skype-wise. So really want to encourage people if they're interested in that. Also, a lot of the physical game and how to make your golf club your health club and all of those kinds of things. So encourage people. As well, I do, as you know, Ted, a lot of business coaching, executive coaching, and golf being a business sport. It's a great tool in the business world. So for those who are interested to, work on that some more, I'm always happy to do that. Reach me and leave me a message, and I do personally get back to the folks at 760-492-GOLF, 4653. So, and I'll also be in Calgary soon. So, just get in touch.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. And certainly last but not least, Bill, how can the folks reach out to you? And I know you're going to be heading northbound here in a few weeks. You're down in Florida for a little bit longer, enjoying some of the sun and the warm weather, but you're going to be heading back up north. So let the folks out know how they can reach out and when you're going to be heading back.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Ted, and Paul and Jamie. It was a pleasure being with you. And Paul, maybe I'll see you Tuesday at the Masters because I'll be in town. So,
awesome.
Easiest way to reach me is BillAbramsGolf.com is my website. My email and telephone number, direct line are right there. I will be down here in Florida for just a little bit longer, and then I'll be at Balmoral Woods in Crete, Illinois, just south of Chicago, for the balance of the summer months and into October. My Facebook is BillAbramsGolf.com. You can also get me at Bill Abrams Golf on Twitter and then on Instagram. So it's been an absolute pleasure with everybody, and I hope to talk to anybody soon, and just reach out if you need anything.
All right, appreciate it. Well, Jamie, Paul, and Bill, thank you again always for coming on Coach's Corner. I appreciate it. And until next time, have a great week and enjoy the Masters tournament, and also enjoy watching the young ladies playing on Saturday in the Augusta Nationals Women's Amateur. I think it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be great for women's golf. So I'm very excited to see these young ladies play for the very first time on Augusta National. So thanks, guys, and I look forward to having you joining me again in the near future on the panel.
Thanks for having us, Ted.
Thanks again, Paul, and thanks for listening, folks. Talk to you soon.
Great job as always, Ted, and thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was the Coach's Corner panel, and great group, Bill Abrams, Jamie Leno-Zimron, and Paul Castor, and you can get them through their social media contacts, and definitely a great group to work through. Always enjoy doing the panel. Before I introduce this evening's special guest, who has also been on the show over the years a number of times on the Coach's Corner panel, as well as a special guest, I want you to listen to a little bit of information about GolfSwing.com, tonight's sponsor.
Are you finally ready to improve your golf game? GolfSwing.com is changing the way golfers learn online. With the largest collection of golf training programs and drills on the planet, GolfSwing.com can help you improve every part of your game. Whether you want to gain more distance, hit it closer, or just sink more putts, GolfSwing.com's staff of world-class coaches can help you gain the results you need. Watch unlimited videos on any device from anywhere in the world and start playing better, scoring lower, having more fun, and saving money. Get your fix on demand at GolfSwing.com.
All right. Again, after the show, go and visit GolfSwing.com. You can join their online video academy. Very, very reasonable priced, and join their academy. They've got a great group of golf professionals from literally all over the place, and they've got literally thousands of great teaching videos and specialty videos, if you will, on their platform. So go to GolfSwing.com. All right, as I mentioned, my very special guest tonight is Eric Cogorno. He is the founder and owner of Cogorno Golf, and he's been on the show not for a little while yet, so I'm very excited to have him back. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then I'm going to bring him on. Eric, in his more than 11 years as a golf teacher professional, has quickly built a reputation as a highly respected performance golf coach. He is intuitively able to combine the art and science of golf to design seemingly simple strategies unique to each individual student that lead to significantly improved performance for golfers at all levels. On a mission to develop more engaging ways for people to play and enjoy golf, Eric's passion for the game and for producing results for his students is contagious. He believes in working on improving and building skills in all areas of the game and applies that same discipline to his own continuing development as a coach. His unique game-like style of teaching creates an environment where even the learning is addictive. He's got a great YouTube channel. We'll talk about that as well. He's born and raised in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, was a scratch golfer by the age of 15, and he's golfed throughout high school and while attending Lehigh University. During that time as a competitive golfer, he won numerous tournaments and was twice awarded the Golf Association of Lehigh Valley Player of the Year award. A self-proclaimed golf geek, Eric resides in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and offers instruction at Bethlehem Golf Club as well. So let me join me, if you will, and welcome my very special guest this evening, Eric Cogorno. Good evening, Eric.
Thanks, Ted. That was thank you. That was a heck of an intro, man. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's been a while. I was very, very excited when Mary, and please thank Mary for arranging this and reaching out and having you come back on the show. It's been a while since you've been on, and I know obviously many of the reasons why. We're going to talk about a few of them tonight, but welcome back. You were on, I remember, I know it's been a few years, but you were on a few Coaches Corner panels, if I remember.
Yeah, I miss you, man. I miss you. A lot has changed since then. Obviously, you had a little chat with Mary, but no, I'm happy to be back. I appreciate you having me.
Not a problem anytime. So I want to talk about, let's go back a little ways. I know you're younger than I am, but you've been playing for a long, long time, and I know you've been teaching for a while. We'll talk about that as well. But talk about really how you got into the game, not as a teacher professional, but how you got introduced to the game. What was sort of the initial impression, if you will, and how old were you when you first started?
Yeah, so I started playing, I think, probably like a lot of us, where we had a loved one or someone close to us who played, that we would tag along with. And for me, that was my dad. So, when I was growing up, most of us, you usually kind of look up to your dad like they're Superman. And that's how it was with my dad for me. And he happened to golf on the weekends, every weekend with his friends. And so, me looking up to my dad, wanting to spend time with him, was kind of like, hey, take me along with you. I want to come hang out and play. And, I played sports growing up and played baseball, basketball, football. And I remember he got me an initial little set of clubs. I was probably maybe like 10 years old at this point. And he handed me this little like Ray Cook pitching wedge, little cut down pitching wedge. And we had a big backyard, and I took a swing and I hit the ball, and it was right down the middle, Ted, and I thought, son of a gun, this is an easy game. I got this down pat, no problem. And just about every swing from there has been going in the opposite direction. No, but I mean, from about 10 years old, I started playing with my dad, and once I got a taste of going able to play, and I loved it, and I wanted nothing more than to be able to just play with my dad and his friends, and got a little taste of what that was like, and then that turned into, hey, I'd kind of like to be able to beat my dad, and that was a couple year process. Didn't take me too long, but a couple of years after that started beating my dad, and that gave me a little more motivation. And a couple of years later, we were playing in tournaments and in college, and here we are now talking to you.
Yep. It's interesting because it's very similar to my story as well. My father took me, I was a little bit younger than that, but probably around the age of 7, and he took me to the driving range first just to sort of show me a few pointers here and there, and then got me my first set, and a lot of it was cut down irons and things from old sets that he had. So, I was a little bit older before I was able to actually go out and buy my own true first golf set, if you will, but very similar story to that. Obviously played with my father and enjoyed that. And it was just a way of, really bonding with your dad, and it was something he was very passionate about. So I understand exactly where you're coming from on that. The other thing that's very interesting, and we'll get into sort of the business side a little bit in a moment, but another point I want the listeners really to understand too is you actually began giving golf lessons very young. You were a teenager, in fact. Obviously, you were, as I mentioned earlier, a scratch golfer by pretty much the age of 15, so you're obviously very accomplished individual as a golfer. How and why did you start teaching?
Yeah, so I started working at the course picking balls, I think maybe illegally. Hopefully we're past the point of any sort of legal ramifications here, but I think maybe when I was like 14-ish. I started picking balls, was in school, the old, I don't know, $6 an hour type of deal back then. And picking balls into high school. And, I always tell the story. It's one of those things, Ted, where like you have these events where you can remember them vividly as if they happened yesterday. And for me, this was one of them. I was picking balls, and I remember we had just gotten paid. We got paid on Thursdays. And I don't know how many hours I worked at, maybe 10 hours or something at that point, 15 hours. And my paycheck after taxes was like $57, right? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm 15 years old. I'm pretty happy with that. It's a couple meals, whatever. And one of the assistant pros came in, walked in the pro shop, and sort of offhand made the comment that he just gave a golf lesson and made $50. And I knew his lessons were half hour. And so, I'm not a genius or anything, but I did some kind of basic math there and said, well, $50 an hour is a lot better than $6, right? And and that's really where it started. I wish I could say I started because of the love of the game, or I started because the love of, I really wanted to help people. But to be brutally honest about it, it was just a math thing, right? And and so that was probably, I was 15 when that happened. And so right there in that moment, I knew I wanted to teach instead of pick balls. And it took me maybe like a year and a half to 2 years to kind of make that an actual thing. But I started teaching early.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because everybody sort of has a different story of how they got in. Obviously, some, maybe were brought into a family of golf professionals and, they wanted to sort of follow suit, and others have a similar story to what you had. Is just, they didn't really necessarily get into the golf business per se when they were younger, but were exposed to it in some way. And obviously you had a very unique situation. And I don't blame you. You can make $50 in an hour, or you can work another 10 and make, $57. So it's kind of a no-brainer, and I don't blame you one bit. And obviously, as we can see from today of how things are going for you, that it was a very wise decision. And I want to talk about something too, as again we shift into sort of the business side of things here. Back in 2007 and 2008, obviously, we went through a recession here in the U.S. and really around the world. And you sort of redirected. You obviously taught golf for a number of years and that beforehand, but you decided to make a little bit of a shift in your strategy. Tell us a little bit about what that shift was.
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I had done fairly well in school and did decent at golf, and I had a scholarship to go play at Lehigh, which is a pretty good academic school up here in the Northeast, and had this plan of going to Lehigh, going the finance route, New York City, the stockbroker type of deal. That was kind of the route that you took from the school that I came from, go to Lehigh and do that. And my first year of college, I go to this recruiting, and I'm meeting all these guys that are graduate MBAs, 6-figure jobs out of school, everything's beautiful. And my first semester of school is in the 2007, 2008 when the economy collapses. So it kind of went from this, here's my plan of, 4 years in school, MBA in a year and a half, there we go, to these guys are graduating with, some of them $300,000 worth of debt and literally can't get a finance job. And so that was really eye-opening, I think, at that moment of, hey, I need to have an alternative plan here, right? Like I don't want to be in a situation where I can't find a job afterwards. And, like we said, I started teaching early. So at that point I had been teaching for a couple of years. And as you are when you start teaching, I was absolutely god-awful in the beginning. But you kind of get some kind of clients out of just, you can speak to people and personality, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think I started teaching maybe at like $30 an hour. I was too scared to charge that 50, and then you kind of bump your way, up. And it was kind of like, hey, if I spend all of my time here building this teaching business and getting really good at coaching, which is my first priority, how do I get really good at this coaching thing? Can I build this into something that would be as lucrative as the finance route, without having to do the office
right.
80 hours a week and be semi-miserable. So it was really a powerful kind of shift that with the economy happened kind of at a nice time for me before I got too deep into the finance route. Now, that's me saying this. I'm enjoying myself talking to you. Maybe I went the finance route. I could be making $10 million a year now. So maybe it didn't go good, but from my mind, things turned out well, pretty okay there.
I think you're having a lot more fun now from what I've seen than I think you would have the other. You might have had a little bit more money in your wallet and in your pockets, but I don't think you would have enjoyed things as much. I always believe when it comes to passions and dreams, if you chase the money, you're chasing the wrong thing. You have to have passion about whatever you're doing, and you've obviously developed that. And here's something I want to talk about, because really what you've done with your your business model now is sort of strayed from what traditionally most people think of when they talk about golf professionals. And I want to sort of set this up, and then I want you to follow on from that. Traditionally, it was sort of the in-person, one-on-one type golf lessons, and you've sort of really come at this at a very unique time in the golfing industry, because everything is now coming online, just like this program is online now. And you really had some foresight to see that, okay, you know what, I love giving golf lessons, at the course, and it's great, but, there's other opportunities. So you actually developed an online platform, if you will, creating everything from online videos and video products to instruct. Talk about what the sort of the mental process was. How did that come about, and why did you feel that was a direction you needed to go?
Yeah, I think the same sort of mindset that figured out, the $50 an hour is better than the $6 an hour, could kind of come to a point that, I love this teaching. I really do enjoy spending time with people, but me giving one-on-one personal lessons obviously is not scalable. I can only teach a certain amount of hours per week. I get one person at a time. I can kind of do some basic math there, and this is sounding like I'm all about the money, which I'm not, but I wanted to optimize things.
Right.
So that started with, hey, how do we scale this thing? How do we grow beyond me with one other person for 1 hour? And in the beginning, what the next easiest thing to do would have two people for 1 hour, or 3 people, or 4 people. So I would just scale it into what a lot of golf pros will do, which will be work in groups. And that was good. That worked. Income got better. Money got better. I was able to still help people, but I could kind of scale my efforts to more people. But then still, right, Ted, how many people can you teach at one time? There's a limit to how big the group can be. And so, how do you scale that bigger? And so that's kind of where the YouTube idea came of. Unfortunately for us, with the online, it's you can scale it as much as you want, right? It's sort of unlimited. So I wanted to do some YouTube and grow my audience online. I spent about $800 or $900 on a camera. Had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and fortunately, sort of randomly met my now business partner, Mary Langle, as she came in for a lesson, and she had seen me coaching a couple of the kids that were around and said, hey, you have really something cool going on here. Let's talk about maybe building something. So it was sort of a perfect timing and a perfect sort of fluke of a situation for her coming into a lesson, which now has blossomed into this business model. And we started doing the YouTube videos, as we can talk about, and about 2 years into that, we met some guys from a company called Dormead, which we partnered with to make our instruction site, which is our membership site at CogornoGolf.com. So, yeah, there was a lot of kind of pieces that lined up for it to work from that original idea of how do we scale this beyond just a one-on-one golf lesson.
Right. And the reason why I wanted to mention that is, and we're going to talk about this specifically here in just a moment, but, one of the things, Eric, that, we see a lot of coaches now, teacher pros, doing online video and things like that. That's become a big thing right now. But I've seen a lot, and again, I mean no disrespect to some of your fellow professionals out there, but some of them are quite good. Some of them have got great business models of their own. but there's a lot of repetitiveness and really not getting to the heart of things. And they offer membership sites, but what you're offering is really different from some of the traditional sites. It's not just a video library. You're actually developed a structured learning daily interaction through obviously social media platforms like Facebook, which is a great platform to use. Again, talk a little bit about that. You've taken a sort of a step further than sort of your traditional online video academy.
Yeah, I really wanted to do the beyond the YouTube. The YouTube videos for us really allowed me and us to grow the audience, and I think really allow people to get to know me and us do enough with the videos where I can really help people. The problem with the YouTube, though, was that the videos are always generic. I can do a fix a slice video, right, but is that fix the slice going to fix your personal slice? And the answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. And so what we really wanted to do with the site was make it more personalized. How do you do a generic general video, but also make it personalized enough where if you were watching Ted and I was watching it, it would still apply to the both of us. And the reality is that's almost impossible to do, right? You have to have some personal interaction. I got to know a little bit about the person watching the video. What do they want to do? Where are they at, et cetera. So instead of us just having this video library, which we have video, training course and stuff on there, we include a Facebook group on there where the members can post their swings on there, and I can see their swing and guide them. That's really the huge difference. Like if I can see someone swing and know a little bit about where they're at, it's then really easy for me to guide them in the right direction. But if I can't see their swing and I'm just going off base, what they say, then it's a little bit like flipping a coin. So that really, I think, has been a differentiator for us.
Yeah, and Eric, you raise a very interesting point, because this is talking about that sort of generic fix, if you will. One of the big problems that the golf industry has experienced and you know this yourself from being in it for a while, is too many of the instructors sort of put everybody in one box. Everybody's got a unique swing. Everybody's built differently. You're built differently from me. And, there are certain fundamentals that you can generally, sort of guide people into that direction. But again, there is a certain amount of uniqueness involved in that person's golf swing. So if you're putting out videos, that's great. But if they're sort of a generic-based video, they might work for you. They might work for me. But Bob down the street here isn't going to get necessarily something out of it, so he's going to lose interest. And you've sort of created a way, again, through that interaction of more personalizing, if you will, the experience for the individual. Would that be pretty much accurate?
Yeah, that's 100% perfect. It's making the videos not generic, but also then me being able to do a video. I'll just use the slice fix thing again and say, hey, for you, Bob, down the street, like, here's the parts that are relevant to you, here's the parts that aren't. And then even within that model, as you mentioned, I mean, different body types, different mindsets, all kinds of different backgrounds. It's even got to go more personalized than that. So if someone's getting a cookie cutter plan or a cookie cutter idea, it's like flipping a coin. It needs to be personalized for it to actually work long term.
Yeah, and I just want to add one more thing before we move on too, is, and I think I already know the answer to this, but and it's probably very similar to me, is I don't subscribe to one sort of method, if you will. I mean, we hear a lot of some of these top 100 teachers that are out there that are the stack and tilt, and they're talking about this and they're talking about that, and they're trying to train everybody to play the same type of golf. And again, it might work for some, but there's a lot of folks out there that it may not apply to. And that's an area I think that the golf industry is starting to realize. You're not doing that here. I mean, you might, have some specific movements and things that may be incorporated in some of these different methods that are out there, but you're not trying to apply that to everybody's golf game. Trying to make it unique and applicable to everybody, which is a big mistake that the industry has done for a long time. And I think they're starting to realize that now. And again, I think I would be correct in that, right? You're not trying to utilize one specific method. You're trying to really drive the point home that Bob or whoever you're dealing with is, again, unique and different in his or her makeup, and you're trying to customize something for that individual.
That's exactly right. I think there's probably a handful of kind of fundamental things, like any skill, that are pretty important, but within those fundamental things, there's going to be individual characters. So it's 100%, Ted, about the personalization of everything.
Right, and that's why I wanted to mention that. Something else too that is interesting, I wanted to mention again too, that before we move on, is another addition, access point to golfers, is your live rapid fire show on your YouTube channel that you mentioned every Monday nights at 5 p.m. Eastern. Talk a little bit about that. What happens on that program? Yeah. So we do it's kind of Mary and I's initial attempt at doing a golf show. What we do is, as you said, every Monday on YouTube, we go live. It's 5 p.m. We call it Rapid Fire Golf, and basically what it is you can go on there and you ask golf questions, and I rapid fire answer them. Right. So usually when we're on there, I mean, I don't know how many questions I go through, but we go through an hour, and I'm sure it'll feel like you and I talking now. It literally feels like it takes like 5 minutes. So it's right.
Ask any kind of questions you want. I mean, most people that are on there will ask swing specific questions for them, and then I'll go through and I'll give them answers, and it's kind of like a 10 to 30, maybe 1 minute long answer at most per question. And I think it's a good way for us to, we might have 45-ish thousand subscribers now at this point. We're growing pretty quickly. I mean, we have we're probably getting 200 to 300 new subscribers every day on YouTube. So it's really growing fast. And what we want to make sure we do is, I want people to know me and be able to talk to me beyond just the videos that we put out. So I think it's a nice way to bridge the gap with the audience and them to kind of ask specific questions, again, to kind of personalize, hey, here's this video on this topic, but does this apply to me? Is this applicable to me? How do I use this? So that's kind of the idea around that.
Yeah, and just to let the listeners get an idea of what you're talking about as far as growth, when Mary and I set this up, which was a little over a month ago, I think it was close to 2 months ago, obviously I like to do a little bit of research when I have guests on, and even though I've had you on the show in the past, a lot has changed since you've been on, so I wanted to do a little research, and your YouTube channel at that time was around, if I'm not mistaken, about 36, 37 subscribers. When I was on there the other day, which was just within the last couple of days, I think it was either just at or just over 46,000. So you're exactly right. You're really getting a lot of growth on that. And obviously, you're providing great content. It's very professionally done, number one. And obviously, you have to have knowledge about the product and or service that you're offering. So that's important as well. But what are some other things that you think have helped? I mean, obviously, Mary's helped you as well. Get that word out there. But what are some other things do you think have been critical to really developing the success of this channel?
Yeah, obviously Mary has been absolutely instrumental, and I mean, me without her in the beginning none of this stuff comes to light. So having her and having her with me to do the videos has been absolutely huge. I mean, that's by far the biggest part. But beyond that part, I mean, I think, the reality of it, Ted, is we did videos for probably 15 months, and really no one watched. Yeah. Like we had, I don't know, maybe 700 subscribers. Like literally last May, we had maybe 700 subscribers. And that's not that long ago. So I mean, it was really just sheer determination and discipline of posting for 15 months and not quitting. I think it's really hard to get past that initial bump until kind of anyone kind of watches. That was huge. I think obviously Mary's editing ability and the quality of the videos has gotten a lot better. The cameras that she got has gotten better. The quality of the videos is really night and day since we started. I think my ability to communicate and keep things relatively simple in the videos has helped. And then it's just kind of been snowballing. I think now the growth that we're seeing is kind of the work really that's been put in over 2 years that's kind of just now coming to fruition.
Yeah, and it's like anything, you're building a brand, you're building an identity, and first and foremost, I mean, you have to be, people have to have a certain comfort level with you. I mean, they have to feel like obviously that you're knowledgeable, which you are, about your product and or service that you're offering. but you have to be somebody who's approachable. And again, I mean, no disrespect to, our fellow pros out there, but there are some that just don't have that way of communicating through their videos. It's just very bland. It's very, they're certainly very knowledgeable about their sport and their game, but they're just not the way that they put it down on film, if you will. It just doesn't come across, doesn't resonate. So you're not going to get that. And it is perseverance. It's the same when I first started this show. I mean, I'm in my 7th season now with Golf Talk Live, and it was the same thing for me, just through determination and posting, and I'm sure some people get sick of seeing it, but it served me well over the years, and here I'm 7 years later, so and it gets to the point now I don't even have to ask for guests anymore. Guests come to me, so that's what really makes it nice. But yeah, and I think that's great. The way you're doing it is you have to. Again, it goes back to what I said to you earlier, Eric. Is you have to be passionate about what you do, and I think if you really truly enjoy what you do, and you wake up every morning and say, what can I do today to help some people out there, and how can I really get the message out there that I want to get, and you come up with and kind of brainstorm with your partner and things like that, you're going to see the results, and it's not going to happen overnight. And one time you had 700 subscribers, now you're pushing upwards of soon to be 50,000 and then beyond. So I think that's great work on both parts, both yours and obviously kudos to Mary as well. Let's talk a little bit about golf and golf improvement. I know we touched a little bit about it, but talk again a little bit more about the feedback to golf improvement, meaning an instructor looking at your swing and or using video mirror, etc. As a student out there, that feedback is critical. Talk a little bit about that and the relationship that you're developing through your, your academy, if you will, about giving that feedback, how important that is to the students.
Yeah, I guess I'm seemingly on and kudos to you for the 7th season. I mean, that's tremendous. I think it goes the same way of and we'll get into what you just said there, but I mean, I recognize too that I have the chops to be on camera, and then I can communicate, and you have to have some charisma. Not a lot of golf pros could do the show you do, right? Not a lot of guys could host a show. It's not something that just it is what it is. But not everyone can dunk like LeBron James. I mean, that's part of the deal. So kudos to you too. I think that's what you've built here is awesome. So feedback wise, I've been, I guess, on kind of a crusade the past couple of months of feedback, and it really stems and roots from the idea that I tried to fix my swing and change my swing and improve for literally a decade, and my swing didn't really change at all. And in kind of going back and looking at what did I do to try and now, you get better by pure volume, right? I got better, blah, blah, but I didn't really improve at the rate that I should have relative to the time I spent. And so I think in going back and looking at that and saying, what could I have done different? What do people do in different sports or industries that actually make change? And the one glaring issue was feedback. And what I mean is I gave myself literally no feedback ever, right? I would go to the range, I would hit balls, and if I hit it good, I kept doing what I was doing, with no idea what I was doing. And if I hit it poorly, I would try and think of something to change it and hit it good in the moment. And then I just would rinse and repeat that same cycle. And I think that's what's fundamentally wrong with what people do with golf. And you would literally never do that in anything else, but that we seem to do that in golf. You wouldn't show up to a business and say, well, I hope I make money today, and we're going to just wing it and see what happens, and we're never going to check the accounting. You would never do that. You would give yourself feedback in anything else you would do, right? And the same thing applies with a golf swing. And it's way more important in a golf swing because when we stand there and we make a swing, you and I both know what we feel like we're doing when we're swinging, we aren't actually doing. And that is inherently true. There's no getting around that. That will never change. And so if we accept that as true, what we need to know is not only what are we supposed to feel, but we need to know what we're actually doing so that we can change what we're feeling. And the only way to know what you're doing is through feedback. And probably under 1% of golfers actually give themselves feedback when they're practicing. 99% probably do not. And then of that 1% that do give themselves feedback, do they even know what they're looking for, what they're trying to do? And that's really the gap that I'm trying to bridge, is to say to you, hey, Ted, if you actually want to get better at golf with your golf swing, we can definitely do that. You need two things. Number one, you need to know exactly what you're supposed to work on. I can help you with that. And then number two, you need a lot of feedback in your practice and deliberate practice to ensure that you're doing it and not just going out and guessing. And what people do is they go guess, and then they don't get as good as they should. And that is a humongous problem with people not getting better at the game of golf, feedback and lack thereof.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You know, and we're talking about practice here in a second. You know, that's something that has always, I think, frustrated a lot of us in the profession is, you know, we try to, you know, give good feedback to the students, but if they're not, you know, adhering to the information we're giving them and they're just sort of showing up for the lesson, you know, haphazardly, they're never going to improve. And obviously there's practice involved and there's a commitment. And I think if you truly want to, you know, and I'm sure you see, even to this day, you still see a lot of it, but I'm sure very early on when you first started with your instructions, you know, you get a lot of people out and say, well, I'm slicing the ball. What can you do? Or, you know, I'm doing this with a driver and that, what can you do? And they're looking for that Band-Aid or that quick fix. And the truth of the matter is, if you want to really become a better player, and that doesn't mean you're going to make it out in the PGA Tour or LPGA Tour, but if you truly want to become a better golfer, then there's a commitment that you have to make on both sides, both the student side, but also the instructor side, to make sure that the information we're giving them is pertinent to their needs, but also is giving them the right kind of feedback and then formulating a good game plan with that feedback. And this brings me to practice. You talk about frequency versus duration when it comes to golf practice. What do you mean?
Yeah, I think with any skill, frequency trumps duration, meaning if you were going to hit 150 golf balls in 1 week, you would be better off hitting 30 balls per day over 5 days instead of those 150 balls in 1 day. And the kind of doing it day after day after day after day after day at smaller amounts proves to improve a skill much greater. There's a lot of science and a lot of literature that backs that up, but on my own experience, that proves to build a skill much better than, you know, everyone. What's the typical practice, right? Once a week for an hour at the range is what I hear all the time. And you know, in fact, in 20 to 30 swings every day, you could get a lot done if you're deliberate. And so I think shorter burst, you know, more focused, deliberate, less total golf balls, and setting a game plan, Ted. Like, if someone's going to go in there and practice, like, say, hey, I'm going to hit 30 balls no matter what. Whether I hit them good, bad, or indifferent, here's my plan. I'm going in, I'm hitting 30, I'm getting out. A lot of stuff can start to go downhill when you get to the 30th ball and it's not going good, and you start guessing and checking and trying to fix it. Get in 30 balls, get out, and then do the same thing the next day.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I know even from my own self, you know, years ago, obviously I don't get to play as much as I used to for a variety of reasons. I'm busy with the shows and things like that. But a lot of it was even at home. You know, sometimes if I couldn't make it at the range, I kind of set myself in a situation where I could do certain things. Obviously, some things I couldn't, but I could do certain things at home. You know, working on my fundamentals and things like that. I can do it in front of a mirror if I need be. And, you know, even if people would do things like that, instead of just, you know, up in the Northeast, they're hibernating for several months. And obviously, you know, I understand that. But they don't do anything for 4 or 5 or 6 months. Then they come out in the golf course and they get in front of the instructor and they're saying, okay, well, I want to pick up where I left last year. I was playing pretty good by the end of the season, and they've done nothing for 4 or 5, 6 months. And they're expecting you to you know, get the old cauldron out and whip up some magical sauce that's going to, you know, improve their game. And, you know, I'm right. I mean, it's true. So what do you say to somebody like that? What do you say at the end of a season? Let's take this, you know, a little bit more literal. What do you say to somebody at the end of a season that maybe is in a climate where you are, maybe they don't have access to an indoor facility? What would you say to them? Okay, you know, again, we'll pick on Bob, but, you know, Bob, here's what I would recommend you do, in the off season, to get prepared for next year.
Yeah, I would say, listen, there's going to be a natural dip in an off season, right? And that
Sure.
that is what it is. Now, if you want to be as ready as you possibly can be, which isn't going to be where you left off, but if you can be as ready as we want to be, for sure, you can do practice at home. I think a couple of things would be relevant. I think frequency over duration. It doesn't take a lot to make 20 swings. We're talking 15 minutes maybe. To me, you must have a golf ball present. Now, that could be a foam ball or a wiffle ball. One thing that I've kind of found true is that the return on investment of practice without a ball is extremely low. The return on investment with practice, even if it's a wiffle ball or foam ball, like maybe it's hitting a wiffle ball into a net at home or hitting a foam ball into a wall, but making swings without a ball is just not going to transfer when the ball is there. At least I don't know how to do that. So I would say a ball would need to be present, and then frequency of it, and then scale expectations and identify priorities. Like if Bob did 30 swings a day and he let's say Bob hits a slice and he does 30 swings a day and he reads watches a video or reads a tip and he's trying to get his right elbow in front of his body and shift his weight more, but Bob's got a wide open club face that he hasn't fixed, then Bob's still got a slice next year, right? We still have the same problem. So he's got to identify what he needs to work on, actually work on the correct thing, and then just scale his expectations. I think if the golfer is someone who's looking to like make a huge improvement from one season to the next and play in tournaments or something like that, then they need to approach their off season much more serious and spend more time. If it's someone who's looking to kind of just maintain what they had before or make minor improvements, then I think more maintenance practice during the winter would be okay.
Right. I agree. I always believe that, you practice with a purpose. Just to go, as you suggested earlier, to, and practice for an hour or 2 hours at the range, even if you hit all the stations, but then you don't practice for another week or two, and do anything, all of that's for naught. I mean, you're certainly going to have, and also fatigue sets in. I mean, if you're out there beating balls, and this is a big thing I see all the time, when you go up to the range, and the practice tee, and you're seeing people just raking and hitting balls, and then they get out in the golf course and they wonder why the ball's all over the place. Why are they hitting the green like they did in the practice setup? And it's just because they don't know how to make that transition. So, that's another thing, too, that obviously I know when you're teaching, obviously when you're doing your online and your YouTube channel, things like that, you're talking about these different things. But when you're actually working with your students, that's something that you try to get them out in the golf course, fairly quickly, too, I would assume, just to get that real on-course experience, because, working at the range for an hour or two all the time is not going to make you a better golfer. It certainly will help maybe your ball striking, but you got to now put it all together when you get out in the golf course. So you try to do that as well, as take them out in the golf course? Do you do a lot of that still, or are you working on other things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the same way, Ted, like for you on this show, you could practice a show, but until you have someone on here and you're in the fire, it's just not quite the same. I could learn how to drive a car perfectly in a parking lot, but until I get out on the road and I'm in the action, it's just completely different. So, I think that number one, you can bridge the gap between the range and the course if you practice smart, which is at some point, I usually recommend at the end of the range session, let's say you were going to hit maybe 50 balls or whatever you're going to do. You do your warm up first, you do your mechanics immediately after that, and then you do your skill and game like stuff at the end. So that could be 10 balls, switching clubs on every ball, switching targets, full routine, as similar to the golf course as humanly possible. And that's where you're gathering your fields you're going to play with and you're transferring. But even that, I mean, you need to be able to take that out onto the golf course and perform and make adjustments. And I usually would recommend at least a 50% ratio for the people that I work with, meaning if you're going to spend 10 hours a week in golf, at least be on the course for 5 of them.
Right, exactly. Well said. I wanted to ask you something I found very interesting, and I want to get you to sort of explain this a little bit more. You talk about the need for exaggeration and why most folks need to exaggerate, or rather don't exaggerate nearly enough, and obviously struggle to make some real lasting changes. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think the struggle for us as golfers, going back to before, is what we feel is not actually real. And the other part of that is, if we would have kind of one of those old, when we used to actually have maps that were like on a piece of paper, and they'd have that little kind of scale on the side, and it'd say, hey, this amount on the map is actually, this little inch here is worth like 100 miles type of deal. That same thing is true with a golf swing. If I in my mind feel like, let's say just as a crude example, I'm doing my backswing, I'm doing a takeaway, and my club head comes too far inside during my takeaway. And I say, okay, my club head's too far inside, I want to make it neutral. Well, to go from inside to neutral, let's say you're a foot too far inside. To go from a foot too far inside to neutral, you got to feel about 10 feet outside, right? You can't just feel neutral. That'll never do that at real speed. You got to feel the opposite of what your flaw is, number one, and then you got to feel it big time. Like whatever you think is a tremendous exaggeration in the beginning, probably real. And that's, Ted, where the feedback is so freaking important, because if I stood there and I did an exaggerated swing with no feedback, I'm going to tell you you're nuts and the club's way outside. But if I see it and I actually see on video or whatever feedback I'm using, hey, no, that's actually perfect. Okay, excellent. Like, then I know that feel gets me my desired result, and then I can put the reps in where it becomes habitual, so it'll feel less and less and less exaggerated. It's absolutely critical that people exaggerate enough in the beginning, but most people don't do it. Why? Because there's only 1% who give themselves feedback, and they're not willing to go that far and feel that uncomfortable in the beginning, and then they never make that improvement. That's unfortunately the reality of changing a golf swing.
Yeah, and we see that obviously, I mean, with all the advancements and all the technology out there, the handicaps are still pretty stagnant for several decades now, not just the last couple of years, but several decades. And, we're not seeing, those scores coming down. And a lot of people are scratching their head and thinking, well, look at all the stuff we're throwing out there. But again, it all boils back to the students. If they're not, absorbing or getting that proper feedback, then you can throw everything at them, including the sun. But if they're not taking that information and absorbing it and then applying whatever the situation may be, applying it in real time, they're never going to improve. And this is what happens, and this goes to my point earlier when I said, a lot of students come to you at the beginning of the season, they say, well, I've got a slice and this, that, and what can you do? And they don't want to put any effort into it, and then they expect you to sort of, work some magic and fix them and create, and you can certainly do some things that will help them. But again, if they're not touching a club now for 6 weeks and they want to play in their corporate event, half the time they're going to forget what you taught them last week anyways. So, you know what I mean? They have to get out there and actually grind it out a little bit. And that just, it's just human nature, I guess, that, it's like you said earlier, when you go to the office and you've maybe got a board meeting or you've got a presentation, you're going to prepare for it. And the same thing should be when you go to the golf course.
Exactly.
And I know we can't get into, and just maybe talk on a few things here, maybe give a few tips before we close out here in a little bit. But and I know we don't have the visual component here on this show right now, but maybe is there a couple of things that you can talk maybe about the downswing or even, fixing a slight? We'll give them a few nuggets, if you will, Eric, on the show here. Let's talk about that area. Downswing is a big problem. What's the mistake? Let's first identify what the mistake is that a lot of golfers are making, and then what you would offer as a solution.
Absolutely. And I think to your point a minute ago, like, we just got done telling the story of it took Mary and I 15 months to get pretty good at doing videos. And the point being, like, I think golfers underestimate the amount of time it actually takes to get good at a swing, even though in other areas of their lives we seem okay with it taking a year. If you told someone it would take you a year to kind of get good at something with a golf swing, they kind of look at you like they're nuts. But that's part of the reality. But anyway, the downswing, I think there's a lot of things that I would typically see that go off. I believe, and I'm starting to kind of more and more I'm teaching, the more and more it's becoming clear to me, there's really only a couple of things that cause problems. So what golfers do is they see a problem at impact. They see that they flip. They see that they came over the top during the downswing. They see that they didn't shift their weight left, whatever the issue may be. And probably 98% of the time, the reason they have a downswing issue is because they have something that went wrong earlier in the swing. And a lot of freaking times, I mean, maybe 80% of it, it's a club face thing. It's something rooted in a club face being typically too open. I mean, literally, 80% of the stuff I see, which would include a flip at impact, over the top during the downswing, early extension, lack of weight transfer, lack of rotation, I mean, you name it, a lot of all of those things stem from an open club face, right? And that open club face could be as simple as a weak grip. It could be too much forearm rotation during the backswing. It could be too much of a cupped left wrist. Kind of going back to the videos before like that, there are kind of a couple of fundamental things that go off that lead to a whole lot of problems later on. And what people run into is they'll try and fix that downswing problem. Like they'll try and fix the over-the-top downswing without fixing the club face first. When like, well, you know, the only reason you came over the top is because your face was open. Like if you don't fix that first, you're probably not fixing that over the top or whatever the issue may be. So I think it's wise to if someone listening is a golfer who wants to improve their downswing pattern or any part of it, would be wise to work with someone who can identify what's going on earlier that's causing that. And when you fix that, you'll actually fix it. It won't be something that continues to pop up forever. That's kind of the telltale sign, I think, is if you fix an issue and it keeps coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back, there's probably something going on earlier that your root cause that you didn't fix. And until you fix that, it's going to keep happening.
Well, and it goes to the point that you mentioned earlier. Every action has a equal reaction to it, and a lot of times if you're fanning the club face open in the backswing, then obviously you have to reroute and correct it in order to get it back to the proper position, and that's when you start running into all kinds of problems. And you see a lot of pros. You look at somebody like most people say, well, look at Jim Furyk. Look how he's looping here and doing this and doing that. But what people don't realize is he's done that so many times. Same thing with a player. You go back old school to guys like Lee Trevino and that. I mean, if you were to analyze their golf swings today under today's standards, people would be scratching their head and say, I can't believe this guy won the majors that he did. But they knew how to manipulate things in such a way to get it back to that good impact position. Now what we're trying to do in today's game is to get them to not do that. And in some ways that's a good thing, but in some ways it's a bad thing because there's some people that need to swing the club like a Lee Trevino or a Jim Furyk or somebody like that, and we're trying to again get them into that A-frame, if you will. So I mean, this is where that interaction between the player and the student or the coach and the student is critical in giving them that good feedback because again everybody is unique. Another thing, Eric, too, that we see a lot of people, especially as we age a little bit, is not getting enough rotation, and there's a lot of issues. Talk about that. Talk about some rotational problems that you've seen and what you offer again as some of the solutions for it.
Yeah, I think some of the biggest flaws we saw, obviously rotation would be one of them. Mary and I just launched we do these like master class courses you can buy specifically for a swing issue you had, and we've done 3 of them so far. They are a rotation master class, a shallow your downswing master class, and a slice fix master class. And so as you could guess, those are kind of the 3 that I think are the most important.
Right.
And rotation's a huge one, right? If you look at people who hit the ball well versus people who don't hit the ball as well, what are the commonalities amongst those two groups? Well, 1-to-1 as a measurable fact, golfers who play better rotate their body more than golfers who don't. And that's both on the way back and on the way down, but more specifically on the way down, right, which is their pelvis motion or hips, if you will, upper body is more rotated, just as you would in any athletic motion. And there's a lot of drills that you can do for rotation. If anyone's interested in that, they can check out that masterclass. Or just I think we have about 450 YouTube videos, and rotation's probably the topic of a lot of them, so they can get some info on that. But it's a fundamental. I mean, it's a fundamental part of playing elite level golf. I don't think you need to rotate super well to break 100 or 90, but beyond that, it's a fundamental part of good golf.
Yeah, and golf can be difficult if you make it that way, but it can also be very easy. I mean, it is a challenging game. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. I mean, we've got to be realistic about it. But it can be much easier on the club golfer and the amateur golfer if they would just pay attention. And I think they try to get too technical. We always joke about paralysis by analysis. They try to analyze the swing too much, and they're trying to get into slot A into part B and C and all this kind of stuff. And instead of really just sort of swinging the golf club. And, again, if their hands are not in the proper position or in a good position, then, of course, it's going to open the club face, and that creates a whole different myriad of problems. So, it's kind of a balancing act in our profession because, you're trying to give them solutions. You're trying to, be mindful of the fact that they're different than the guy you taught an hour ago. And even more so in the format that you're now doing online because you're literally programming this out to thousands and tens of thousands of people. So you've got to do it in such a way that everybody can take a little something away from that. And then if they want more information, then obviously they can go other areas to within your channel to get that. But, that's a very difficult balancing act as a teacher professional to be able to do. And again, kudos to you and Mary for being able to accomplish that. And obviously, the fact that your numbers are rising very rapidly, you're obviously created a good formula for that.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a huge part of it. I think it's funny. A lot of the people that will travel in to see me now for lessons that watch the YouTube kind of assume inherently that I'm going to be heavily mechanical when they see me. I had a gentleman that came in today actually who I was with, booked a 3-hour session with me, and probably for 90 minutes of it, we went through the whole deal, watched him hit balls, et cetera, and I wanted him to do two things. I wanted him to make his left-hand grip stronger, and I wanted him to shift off of the ball during the backswing more. That was it. Two things, left-hand grip, more shift. And in that 90 minutes we spent on the full swing, I probably said those two things to him about 100 times, and within that 90 minutes he asked me about every single joint, what about my right elbow? What about this? What about this? What about this? And my answers were no, right? I'll continue back to the same thing. I'll answer it, but no, left-hand grip, off the ball. Left-hand grip, off the ball. And so if it gets more complicated than that, you're probably missing the boat. It needs to be simple and repetitive over and over and over until you get those baseline things you need to get.
Yeah, a lot of times, and that's a problem with a lot of golfers too, is they try to get too much information. A lot of times it might be a very simple thing that they're needing to work on, and yet they introduce about 15 other problems into it because they see something or they've heard something and they think, well, maybe that's their problem. Yeah. And and it might be something very simple that could cure a lot of issues out there for some of the golfers. But again, they're listening to their body and they're saying, well, no, Bob, you're doing this, you're sliding this over here, and that may not be the issue. And that's why it's important to connect with somebody that's in our profession that obviously has a trained eye to see the things that they need to see. But well, you know what, Eric? It's like you said in the beginning. It even though it's close to an hour conversation, it seemed like it was only 5 minutes. And I've enjoyed this. And I purposely did not want to give the information on where people need to go to get your information until the very end, because I didn't want people, slipping away and say, okay, I'm going to go and, Google this, or I'm going to search that. So let's give them the information. Where do they need to go for your YouTube channel and some of the different things that you have available? So let's give them the laundry list, and then after the show here in a moment or two, then they can go and check everything out that you've got.
Awesome. Yeah. So
there's two main. I'm on Instagram, but I mean, there's two main deals with to contact and watch the content we have. First and the biggest one, obviously, is YouTube. Our YouTube channel is just Eric Cogorno Golf, just my name, Cogorno, Cogorno. Eric Cogorno Golf is the YouTube channel. And then our membership site, where we're building our community, if you want more in depth than just the videos and some personal coaching, and to check that out, it's just cogornogolf.com. So again, just my last name, Cogorno golf.com is the membership site. So those are probably the two easiest. I'm most active on YouTube. We post 3 videos every week, and then we do the Monday Live, so 4 videos. And in the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to ramp that up, and we'll probably be up to 5 or 6 videos. We're going to start posting more live lessons, like actually me with a person giving a lesson. We're going to do a lot more on-course stuff. So they'll be probably almost daily on there. If people want to check that out, I'd be glad to see them there.
Okay, and then also too, just to go back a little bit, you talked about on your YouTube channel Monday nights at 5 Eastern, you have the live rapid fire show. So you want to let them know a little bit more about that.
Yeah. If in terms of like actual personal interaction, you're right. That's probably the easiest and most efficient way is on that Eric Cogorno Golf YouTube channel. Every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do the live. So if anyone has a question or wants to chat or say hi, or kind of come check that out and see what the format's like. It's pretty cool. We talk a lot of stuff. I think even if you just someone's hanging out and they hang out for an hour or 15, 20 minutes, whatever, they'll see a lot of questions get answered. Maybe can have some questions they have in their mind answered as well. So that's something they can check out on YouTube.
Right, and they can also going to your site, your main site, they can get all the social media contacts as well, like Facebook and things like that as well. Correct?
Yeah. If they go online and just search my name, and really on any of the platforms, you can find all of the information. The YouTube channel, if they can hop on there and see that, all the links in the description on all the videos, kind of all of our masterclass products, all of the things we're doing with the website, and anything else like that we're doing, golf schools that'll be coming up this year, all that information. The hub of that's really YouTube. Perfect.
Well, Eric, I want to thank you for stopping by Golf Talk Live. Again, it was a pleasure having you back on the show. And as I said at the beginning, I know it's been a while since you've been on. You've been obviously busy doing a lot of projects and things like that. And I think it's fantastic what you're doing. And as I said earlier, if you develop a passion for something, and you really sink your heart and mind into it, chasing the money in any business, regardless, is never going to bear fruit. It might temporarily, but you've obviously done it the other way, and obviously, again, you out to make money too, but you're really developing something here that is benefiting golfers, and it's showing obviously in your numbers, and obviously, the financial resources, if you will, come to bear fruit as time goes on, and I think what you're doing is a smart platform, and I think the way you're going about it is very good. So again, kudos to not only yourself but also to Mary, your partner as well. But it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I hope you'll come back again.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. I really appreciate it. Hopefully next time is not as long in between, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm happy for you. I'm happy to see that the show is doing so well, and I look forward to coming on soon again.
Okay, sounds good. Eric, have a good weekend. Enjoy the Masters tournament next week. I hope you'll be watching that. Maybe you'll even head up that way. But thank you very much for being my special guest tonight on Golf Talk Live.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Ted.
All right. Good night. All right. That was my very special guest, Cogorno, founder and owner of Cogorno Golf. And if you go to cogornogolf.com is his main site, or if you look up on YouTube, Eric Cogorno, which is spelled Cogorno. That's Eric Cogorno Golf on YouTube. You can get his YouTube channel and subscribe. And as I mentioned earlier, you're seeing rapid growth here over the last year, and especially even over the last couple of months. So on that note, again, thank you to the Coaches Corner panel, Bill Abrams, Jimmy Zimron, and Paul Castor for doing a great job this evening on the Coaches Corner panel. And I will be back next week with a new panel and another great guest. So I hope you'll tune in. Thanks. God bless everybody, and have a great weekend. Thanks for listening to this evening's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. Remember to tune in each week at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. If If you can't join us live, check out the on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts, or listen on any of the following social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. To get updates on future shows and upcoming guests, be sure to visit the show's Facebook page, Golf Talk Live blog. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. Remember to join me live each week for another great broadcast of Golf Talk Live. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.